I'm excited to talk about my research on how exposure, hazard, and vulnerability all contribute to schistosomiasis risk in northern Senegal. At its core, risk is the probability of an event occurring. Today, the event of concern is infection with schistosome parasites, which affect 200 million people globally and can cause organ damage, cancer, and infertility. With this aerial photo of a water access site in a village in northern Senegal, we can visualize different components of schistosomiasis risk. The parasites are transmitted by aquatic snails, which release larvae into the water, and those larvae can infect people by burrowing into their skin. So activities like bathing or washing livestock may put people in contact with parasites. We call this exposure. By itself, water contact isn't harmful. It's water contact in the presence of snails shedding parasites into the water that matters. We can think of snails or the submerged vegetation where they live as the hazard that makes exposure harmful. The third component of risk is vulnerability, or whether or not people can still meet their needs if they reduce their exposure to the hazard. We aimed to understand the relative importance of each component of risk on both the presence of schistosome infection, or whether or not a person became infected, as well as the intensity of infection, or how many parasites they have in their system. And we did this among school-aged children in northern Senegal. And we used ecological and household survey data to construct different indices of exposure, hazard, and vulnerability, which we then used to fit statistical models to infection data. We used a technique called multi-model inference to assign weights to each model and calculate which components of risk were included in the best fitting models. This process generated values of relative importance, which ranged from 0 to 1. For infection presence, hazard was the most important component of risk, with vulnerability a close second. And exposure was in all of the best fitting models of infection intensity, and so it was the most important component of this outcome. Results indicate that the risk of schistosome infection is a product of both environmental and social processes, where snail ecology intersects with human activity. We also found that the relative importance of exposure, hazard, and vulnerability differed by outcome, with hazard an important determinant of whether a person got infected, and exposure driving how heavily infected a person became. These results can inform what social and environmental interventions will be the most useful complements to mass drug administration programs in endemic areas. Thank you.